Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining the session. This is day 7 of Oracle SQL training, and here in this session we will learn about SQL functions. So as we have just brief about the functions, how it's working and like what is the use of functions in SQL. So in this video we will take more details in that SQL functions. So before moving to functions, I just want to highlight few points so that it will be helpful for us to get to know about the SQL functions and all. So just for brief purpose, and if you want example, so yes, in the screen you are able to see few example of functions. For example, we have one table that is customer order table. That customer order table having one of the column is amount, and this amount column store few values. So there are total four records available in the table, and the amount for that all four records are you are able to see, right? So somehow in some case you want what is the maximum amount. Right. So obvious for getting that one, you are not going to calculate one by one or checking. That's why our SQL provide a functions, which function is responsible for giving you a desired result. That's already defined, right? Function is a set of code which is already written. Just you have to use that code to get your desired output. So just like here, you can see max. This is max functions provided by SQL. This max function will take array element. So when we are saying that array element, it means that a multiple element. So here you can see amount having four records. That is array element. More than one values is known as array element, right? So just for brief purpose, so max function is asking the array element, and out of all this array element, whatever will be the maximum number, it will give you the result. So you can see when we execute this code that select max of this amount column from this table, it will return as the maximum values present in this table. So that kind of things we are going to work using the SQL functions. So before coming to functions, let me have a brief on few topics. So one of the common and most important is dual. So dual is a table that is temporary table which is we are just using to display few values for hard coded values or going to use for pseudo columns and all. So what is pseudo columns? Obviously, we are going to learn about that. So you can see that the dual table is a special one row, one column table. So sometimes the interviewer asks that question, that kind of questions that what is the meaning of dual table and how many columns are there in dual table? So it's quite simple that dual table is a special table which is having one row and one column already defined. You cannot add columns, you cannot remove columns from there, and whatever value we want to display in the column, yes, that's the temporary table you can use to display few values. So you can see one columns table presented by default in Oracle database. It is primarily used for selecting a pseudo columns or calculating expressions when you do not need any data or any values coming from any different database tables. For example, we have two values that 5 plus 6, and you want to calculate in SQL, right? So that's time, like SQL select statement require at least one table name, right, to display the data, display the result. Without any table, we cannot use select queries, select statement, right? Select keyword cannot be written without table. So here you can see we have to execute that 1 plus 1. We want to get the result 1 plus 1. And obvious for displaying the result, we have select keywords, right? And select keyword always look for a minimum a table. So in this case, we don't have any table, right? We just have to go and calculate. So that's why we have this dual table concept. What it will do, it will calculate this 1 plus 1, that is 2, and it will display the data in this dual table. That dual is a temporary table provided by Oracle. Few characteristics of that dual table, that we can say that single row and single columns, as I already know explain here in the point, that dual table is a special table which having only one row and one columns, and it's already defined by Oracle database only. And obvious purpose of this dual table is to display hard coded values or display pseudo columns and all. So when we are saying that hard coded values, it means that fixed values we want to display, right? So for example, 1 plus 1 is fixed here. We cannot change runtime value this 1 plus 1. So that all are coming as fixed values or hard coded values in general term we are using in programming terms. So here you can see the another purpose of using this dual table is retrieving the pseudo columns. So what is pseudo columns in SQL? So few columns are already defined by SQL. That columns is giving few specific details, is a few specific data. That specific column is known as pseudo column. For example, we have sysdate column, right? Sysdate column. This sysdate column, whenever we will use, always it will return the current date for the system. So for example, here we use select sysdate from dual. It means that it will return back the sysdate is a keyword or the pseudo columns which will return the current system date. What is the current date? We are in present, right? So it will return the data and it will display the data by using the dual function, dual table. So here you can see in example we use the same. So let's move to next slide, and this slide is more details about the pseudo columns that clearly you are able to see that pseudo columns are special columns in Oracle SQL that do not actually exist as a physical column in a table but can use in SQL. Obvious. So whenever we are discussing about any of the column, so it means that that column should be present in any table, right? For example, here is the amount column, and that amount column we know that is already present in this XX underscore customer underscore orders table, but pseudo columns are the one that is not present in any of the table, that is temporary columns provided by the SQL. And like obvious, it's going to be stored in environment setups and all. So key characteristics of pseudo columns are like it's not going to be take a space, as it's not going to be stored as a physically, just like we don't have any specific table to get the pseudo columns values. Pseudo columns, just we have to use the column name, and that column will it will display that using dual table, or somewhere you want to use, you can use that column values directly. And whenever we are executing any of the pseudo columns, when we are saying it executing, it means that whenever we are using that pseudo columns, it will automatically give values at runtime when that SQL query will be executed. हाँ, डुअल टेबल का पर्पस मैं बताता हूँ। जैसे एक एग्जांपल अभी हम लोग देखेंगे, ठीक है? जैसे एक मेन पर्पस डुअल कॉलम का ये भी है कि समटाइम्स अपने को चेक करना होता है सिस्टम में, राइट? कि सूडो कॉलम्स की करंट क्या क्या वैल्यूज है। फॉर एग्जांपल देखो, वी हैव सूडो कॉलम्स लाइक रोनम. रोनम विल रिटर्न you the numeric values, serial number. Sysdate also is a pseudo column that we discussed, right? The sysdate is going to return you the current date available in the system, and a few more columns we have already presented, like current date. If you want to, what is the current date and time in the system, current time stamp and all. So all these are pseudo columns, and these columns simply we want to display the value of this column. So we know that in SQL, for displaying the value we require select keyword, and it's mandatory to have a table that is from keyword in that SQL statement. So we are you going to use this pseudo column that is current time stamp, which is going to return you the current time, minutes, hour, second, and all these things. But this value is not going to be stored anywhere, right? So when we will use select current time stamp, it will ask you the table name. So for which table you want to display this column, and I told you that this current date or all these pseudo columns are not available in any physical location or any physical table. So that's why we require dual table, so that this value can be displayed with the help of dual table. Another use of the dual table is for calculation purpose. Here I saw that one, right? This example you can see selecting constant. So when we are saying it constant, that is the fixed values. For example, we want to display male or female and M and F, that is fixed value. We want this values is not coming from anywhere. We just want to display that value. At the time, we require dual table to display that specific hard-coded values. For example, here you can see we have to calculate the values, calculate the numeric values, that 1 plus 1, and it should return, right, whatever value is will be. So select a statement we require any of the table. This 1 and 1 is not going to be stored anywhere, right? It's just our calculation purpose we want to check, right? So that's why here we use dual table, so that this select criteria can be fulfilled, because whenever we are using select statement, select keyword, it's required at least one table name, and we know that this 1 plus 1 is not coming from anywhere, any table. Then how it will execute this SQL statement? That's why we given this dual table just for temporary purpose, so that it can display the result of this 1 plus 1 as a 2 in the column for dual. And we know that in dual column, in dual table, we have only one column and one row. So that's the purpose of using dual table. So when we will go for practical, I will show you that one too, that how we are going to use that one. And obvious most some of the time when we have to do the validations, or when we have to do the debugging, right, we are going to use some function and we want to check that is correct or not. So just like number function, character function, at a time we are using that dual table. So in simple term, you can consider as a dual table is a temporary table which is going to help us to display the result which is not stored in any of the table. So that's the purpose of dual table we can consider. So we already discussed about the pseudo columns. All these columns are available here. We will see when we will go for practical. And now it's time for SQL functions. As I told you that SQL function is a set of code which is already written somewhere else in the system. And in the system, it means that in the SQL engine, and just we have to use that functions to execute that specific query, and each and every function having their own meanings, their own values. So whenever we will use that function, it will return that specific value with whatever they have mentioned in their code. So uses of that SQL function. So where we can use that function can be used in various SQL statement, which can be SQL select statement, which can be where conditions, which can be order by, having clause, and all these things. And yes, in the upcoming days, we will get to know more about where we have to use where keywords, what is the use of order by, what is the use of having, and all these things we are going to learn in upcoming days. So these all are the functions, SQL functions, which we are going to learn about. That all these functions we categorized in these are the most common functions, not limited to that. There are too many functions more, but just for brief and learning purpose, we will focus on all these three only. Then later while working, we will get more exposure and we will learn more and more. So when we will divide all these functions in their category wise, so we get to know about three major categories, that is number functions, character functions, and date functions. So date function is specifically responsible for working on the date kind of values, just like our system date or current date, we can say, or that date like date of birth and purchase date, creation date, that kind of things, right? So whenever we have to store values like date, we will go for date functions. And we have character functions. So this character function is related to string values. So we have different purposes of using this character function that include INSTR. So what is the use of this INSTR? We are going to learn in upcoming slides. So same way we have number functions. This number function is used to work with numeric values. So as you can see, few by the name only, if you can identify that ABS is going to return you the absolute values. For example, if you are going to pass any negative values to this function, it will return you the positive data. So here you can see in your code anywhere, if you will find something, any of the name ending starting and ending with this bracket, you will easily identify that is functions. So functions always use this curly braces, this parenthesis, open parenthesis and close parenthesis. So whatever value you will pass between this, it will be considered as a parameters. So when we will pass any values to ABS, that will be known as parameters to ABS. Parameters is a term which we are using to define the value, that value we are going to pass to that functions. Remember, parameters is a function, is a value which we are going to pass to the function. We are going to send to the functions to perform any task. For example, you are the staff on any of that organizations, and your work, someone have assigned you the task that whenever any of the person will come and they will ask you about the technical things, just you have to go there and do that kind of some task, right? So when you are there in office and someone came and they given you the instruction that we need something like that, and based on that instruction you are going to work on that, right? So that instruction in SQL queries is known as parameters, and whatever action you are going to perform, so that action is your task, that action is your features that provided, and you are a function in SQL. So here ABS is a function which is responsible to give you the positive number. Whatever number you will pass to him, this ABS, it will return you the positive number. If you will pass the to ABS function as -5, it will return you the plus 5. If you will give 5, it will also return you the 5. So same as we have different functions. Let's go one by one. So here you can see this ABS function. So return the absolute value of a number, and you can see select ABS as absolute values. This is the column name. So this as is known as alias. I will when I will go for practical, I will explain you the logic or reason behind using this as, right? So and this ABS minus 5 is not going to be stored anywhere, right? This is not in any of the table, but we want to check the values, right? Then that's why we use dual table here. So that dual table will provide their column to display the value of ABS functions. So here we pass ABS to minus 5, and this ABS will return us the positive values, that is 5. The same way we have CEIL. This CEIL is going to return us the most nearest integer values for the value we provided. For example, we are using CEIL 5.3. So what is the next integer of 5.3? That if we will remove the round, so it will be the 6, right? So 5, if we will remove the decimal values, that 5.3, we will remove 3.3, it will be 5. And 5 is the lowest than the 5.3, right? So we have to go for the next integer number after that 5.3. And after the 5.3, next integer number is 6. That's why this function CEIL will return you the 6. Same, for example, we have 5.7, and when we are using that floor for this 5.7, floor, it means that the smaller values. So it will return you the nearest smaller values, which is in the integer form. So below the 5.7, we have 5 as an integer value. Integer value is something that complete values, not any decimal values. The same way we have mode function, and you can see that how we are passing value to any of the function. For passing values to any of the function, we are using bracket, and inside the bracket we have to pass the value, you can see. So this mode functions, we are I forget to change the value here. So it's just mistake, right? So let just for brief purpose, mode is going to return you the division of the number which we are going to use, and this mode will ask you two numbers, and based on that it will divide, and it will give you the result. So the same way we have power function. This power function is going to return you the power of the second number we are going to provide to this power functions. We will see in this practical time. And next two is round and trunc. So there is slight differences between round and trunc. So if you will see, when we are using round with the value 123.4567, here you can see we have comma, and then we have different number. It means that this round function having two parameters. The first parameter is 123.4567, and second parameter is 2. Same as here we have trunc, and this trunc we are passing two parameters. So when we are passing the value, same values to the round function, it will round the value, and it will give you the result. But you can see here in comma we provided 2. It means that it will round these 4-digit decimal places into 2-digit decimal places, and you can see 123.46 is the round value. So here you can see in last we have 5 after 4, and this 5 got rounded by 6. So it is 123.6. The same way we have trunk, but trunk is not going to round anything. It will just remove the values. So here you can see we provided 123.4567, and we given second value as 2. It means that we are asking trunk function to remove the all the decimal places and just left only two decimal places. So if you will pick only two decimal places from this number, it will be 123.4.5, and the same it is going to return 123.45. So these all are the number functions. Let's move to the character functions. So when we are saying that character functions, this character functions is going to work with a string or that character values. So that the first we have INSTR. IN, here you can see STR is the meaning of a string, the short form of a string, and IN is something that index. IN means index. Index means position. So here you can see return the positive position of a substring within a string. So when we are saying a substring is something that the smallest values for that specific string. For example, Oracle SQL is one of our string, and in this Oracle string we have SQL is another substring, right? So when we will use INSTR, and we in INSTR requires two or more than two parameters. So if we will pass two parameters, so the first will be the our string values, and second will be that the value for which we have to find the position. So for example, Oracle SQL is our string, and from this Oracle SQL string we want to get the position of SQL. So what is the position of SQL? So position, it means that starting of the first character. Where, what is the starting of the first character? So you can see 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. 8 is the starting of this SQL, and in result you can see we have 8. So it is the position from where this SQL start in the Oracle SQL string. This is our string value, and is in SQL a string is denoted by single quotes. You can see single quotes. So whenever you will find single quotes, you can easily understand that that is a string. It can be single quotes or it can be dual quotes, both. Any of them you can find. Another, we have SUBSTR. SUBSTR is known as substring, and it is going to return you the substring from your main string. So how it's working, you can see we use select SUBSTR and we given the value as Oracle SQL, and here we have two more parameters. It means that this SUBSTR function having three parameters as of now, and as you can see, the second parameter meaning is that a starting of the string, a starting position of the string, and next numeric values is the total number of character. So 1 and 6, it means that this is our string. Pick the value from first position, or take next 6 character. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Oracle is the 6 character values starting from first position, that is O, and in output you can see here we have result as Oracle. So here we have another function which is upper. This upper function is responsible for converting whatever value you will provide into the uppercase. So here you can see we provided value as ORACLE, Oracle SQL in a small, but it's converted this Oracle SQL into capital. So the same way we have lower function, it is responsible for convert all these values into the lower format. So you can see here we provided Oracle SQL in uppercase, it will change it to lowercase. And now we have INITCAP, that is known as INITCAP. So INITCAP is responsible for converting the value, whatever value you will provide in the INITCAP format. And INITCAP format is something that first word will be capital, another word will be, and rest of the character will be a small of that word. So you can see for Oracle is one word, SQL is another word, and in Oracle O is capital, in SQL S is capital, rest of the things are small. And what value we pass? We pass all these character as a small in this INITCAP function. Another function we have length function. This length function is responsible for returning the total number of character in the string. So we use this length function and we pass this string. So this will return total number of character available in this string. So in this Oracle we have total 6 character, and this 6 character you are able to see we got in result. So now next function, NVL and NVL2. These two are the most important functions available in SQL. This NVL, NVL2 and INSTR or SUBSTR. These four functions we will highly use in SQL, and we will do lots of practice on this. So this NVL function is responsible for removing, replacing null values with whatever value we will provide. For example, here you can see in NVL, we provided first value as null, and another value is what we want to replace with this null value. So this is the null value, right? So this null will be replaced by no values here. In the result value will be no values. I will I will give you example of this NVL in the live when we will go for practical. So this is just NVL2 is just opposite of this NVL. So you can see NVL2 we used the first column out, that is the value is null. So they is saying that if your value will be null, we will execute third parameters. If your value is not null, then we will execute not null. So here you can see our first parameters, that is our main values is null. That's why it will display null values. You can see the third value, whatever we will provide, it will execute that one, null values. Now next two is ASCII, ASCII. This is known as, like we can pronounce ASCII, and full form is American Standard Code for Information Interchange. So this is a standard code language, a standard code which we are using for system definition. So for example, here you can see for each and every character, we are able to, in front end, we are able to see that everything is as a character, but in back end, it's going to be converted into ASCII and then binary and all. So each and every character having their own unique values, unique number that is known as ASCII values. So here you can see this ASCII ASCII is a function which will take a string values and it will return back you the code of that ASCII code of that value. So ASCII code of capital A is 65. It's going to return. Just opposite, we have char function, CHR. This CHR function is responsible for giving you the character values of that specific ASCII values. So this CHR, char you can say, or char, whatever you want to pronounce. So this value will take numeric values and it will return back the ASCII, return back the character of that specific numeric values, that is the ASCII values. So you can see we provided 65 and it given result as A. So these are the character functions. Now after the character functions, we have few date functions. So one of date functions we already used, that to date, if you remember in the day second when we have to convert that string into date format. So we use that to date function. So here you can see to date function is going to convert a string to a date data type. So you can see we use select to date. This is our value. So here you can see single quotes. Single quotes means that this is a string value and this is going to convert it into the date value. So here you can see we passed that 2024-0101 and we provided the format of this 220 whatever date we provided and it's converted into the date format of the system, that is 1 Jan 24. We have toChar function. This toChar function will convert the date format values into string values. And obvious toChar functions we are using to extract the date or values from date, SYSDATE or any date values. So for example, you can see here we provided SYSDATE here to the toChar function. And from this SYSDATE, we want to display the value of SYSDATE in this format, DD, MON, YYY. So it will display the date in this format. So we will use this toChar too. We have add month function. So add month function is asking the date and how many months you want to add. So what it will do, it will add that number of month in this date. For example, if we will pass 1 Jan 24 here in this is date and 2, so it will add 2 months. So it will be 1 March 2024 output of this function. We have last days. Last day function will return the last day of that current month, that a specific month. For example, if we will pass 1 Jan 2024 to this last day function, it will return the 31st because January having the 31st is as a 31st day as a last day. And we have extract. This extract function is going to use for extracting the day, hour, minute from system date. So you can see if we have to extract it means we have to get the year from SysDate. So we will use extract year from date and it will return back the year from that specific date we passed. And most common we have SysDate. This SysDate is returning the system date whatever we have in the present. So right now if we will use SysDate, it will return us the current date whatever we have. So these all are about functions. So now let's move to the practical part and let's focus on that SQL, how we can use in SQL. So we'll start from number functions. So here we have first ABS and all these things. So let's move to that SQL developer to practical part. So this is our SQL developer and here, so we have already created few tables, right? So this were our table which we created. So let me check which table having values. So we will use that one. So this will not use right now. So as we don't have any specific number, so let's go to use null values. So for example, just whatever here we have, we will use the same. So select ABS is a function and from dual table, right? So here I will use select ABS and this ABS function will accept one numeric value. So I'm just going to pass 65 and from where, so here you can see why we are using dual table. That's one of the important features here. So here you can see I want to display I want to get the value of this absolute value of this minus 65. in SQL. So how we can get? So if we will use select this value, it will throw an error, right? Because select statement cannot be without from keywords and without table. So if we will add here from, so obvious from keyword will ask you the table name. So we don't have any table, right, to display this value. That's why we have dual table provided by Oracle, so that it can display the value in the column of this dual as a temporary table. So here you can see we use select abs minus 65 from dual. So what it given, it's done whatever value we provided, it's converted this value into absolute values, as absolute value of this minus 65 is 65. If we will pass any positive values 65, it will also return the same value 65. So that's the reason we are using ABS functions. And here you can see when we are executing the query, right? So what is the column name? It's a bit difficult, right? The column name is that same, whatever value we have in the select, this is the column name. Right? It's not looking good, right? So that's why if you want to change the column name, that's why we called alias. So here, this is our values. And for this value, we will give one alias, that is column name. So for giving the column name, just you have to give one space and you have to give the name, column name, whatever you want. So let me give the name as absolute value. So now here you can see this will be the column name for this value. So when we will execute this one, this will be with a column name for this value. So let me execute this one. So you can see absolute value column having the value as 65. And these are the temporary column. Why? Because this is temporary column, because this temporary column. So whenever we are using alias, alias is a temporary column name, not column. And as we are using dual here, so that's why this alias name moved to dual columns and dual column name changed to alias, to the alias name whatever we given. We have another way to use to give the alias of the tables. For example, let me check any of the tables. So suppose this is our table, right? Eligible table. So here select a star from this one, right? So let me use cust ID, right? Cust ID, comma, order amount. Here you can see it display two columns, as we given only two columns in the here in the select statement, and it display these two column from this table. But we want to, while displaying the data, we want to change the column name, right? Instead of cust ID, we want to say that something like customer ID. So how we can, we don't want to change the table column name, right? So as we just want to see the correct column name or the good column name in the displaying the result only, we don't want to change the column name in table, right? That's why we have alias concept. So what I will use, I will do a space after the key, after the column name, and here we have to give the column name whatever we want. So let me give the name as customer ID. And now if you will execute this query, so you can see cust ID column name is replaced by customer ID, and in this database table this customer ID is there. We have not any changes in this customer ID, this table. So if I will show you, select a star from this table, so you can see cust ID is there in the table. So what it is going to do in select statement only, so when it is extracting the data from this table and displaying the data into tabular form, they change the column name here. They didn't change the column name in table, they just change the column name in the result. So whatever result it displaying. So this is the one way to give the alias, right? So as I told you, I always prefer that after keywords, whatever value we are using, I'm just going to use that in new line. So this value I'm going to use in new line, right? So now it's looking good, right? So this is first column, second column also I will go in new line. So these are the column, right? So I executed this query and it's giving result. I also want to change the name of this order amount column to order or to amount column only. So how we can change? Again, we just have to give a space and here we have to give the name as amount. So instead of amount, let me give it as a purchase amount. Purchase amount. So if I will execute, you can see this order amount column name is changed to purchased amount. So for giving the alias, we have two ways. The first way is directly we can give the name. Another way we can use as. So as is also doing the same. We don't want to do anything, just give the as and execute. There is no differences, you can see. So you can also use as, or even you can skip using as, no differences at all. And here you can see I always use underscore while giving the name. Why? Because Oracle or any programming language is not allowing you to use a space in name. So if you will use a space, it will treat as two word. This is first word, this is another word. And once we will execute, it will throw an error. So that's why it's mandatory to use underscore if you want to segregate two different word in a single name only. That's why I use underscore. But there is one more logic. So while using this alias, right? While using the alias, so this just only in alias, you can use a space in the name, but on the time you have to use double quotes here. So when you will use double quotes, so Oracle will consider all this value in as a single value. So all these two words will be treated as a single words as we separated by double quotes. So if you will execute, you will be able to see the value, and column name you can see purchase space amount. But this is not suggested to work. This is not recommended because you can get error or various challenges in upcoming days, in upcoming steps once you will use these values, because you cannot then extract the column from this when we have the column name as with a space. So that's why this is not the good practice. So we are not using a space here. So instead of a space, we are using underscore. So we are done with this alias, right? Giving the alias name. So now next time, if you will see this alias here, so you will not confuse this as then the something name. It means that this is the alias name of the result for this column. So now let's move to the cell. So I will use again select CEIL, and here we have to provide values. For example, I will give you 6.5 from dual, right? So when I will execute, this will return back the 7, right? The result will be 7 because the next integer value after 6.5 is 7 only, right? 6, if we will use 6, it will be the less value, less than 6.5. But we have to go for more than 6.5. Seal is something that we know that ceiling fan, and ceiling fan is going to be available at above of our head, that upper side of. And when we are saying that floor is in downside, so that's why when you will use floor, it will give you lesser value. If you will seal, it will give you higher value. So if I will execute, it will give us 7. You can see the same way. If you want to use another columns, you can give comma, just like we are using in our previous one. And here you can use another column. So another column I want to use is floor, FLOOR floor. And if I will pass same value 6.5, you can see it will return back the 6. So why? The next value less than 6.6 is 6, right? So that's why it's giving 6. If you will use 6.2, it will also return back the 6 values. Here you can see the column name, right? This is not the correct column name, right? No one will prefer column name like this, floor bracket 6.2 and all. So that's why we have alias concept, and we can change the name. So we can change the name FLOOR floor underscore value. This is our name. We can give any of the name. And CEIL seal. We cannot use name as a keyword. So seal is keyword here. We cannot use this keyword as a name. It will throw an error. So here you can see column name is going to be changed. Seal value and floor values. That's the reason we are using alias. So now seal and floor we are done. We done with ABS. Now we have mode function. So let me check with mode. So I can also use mode here. So I just want to check the mode of 10 by 2. So I will give the name and mode values. So if I will execute, you can see this mode is going to return you the reminder. And when we are dividing 10 by 2, it is going to return 0, because when we will divide 10 by 2, it will return 0 as a reminder. So if you will make a 3, so reminder will be 1, right? So 3 will be divided by 10, divided by 210 by 3 times, and the remainder will be 1. So if you will execute, you will be able to see 1. If we will use 4, so remainder will be 2, so we will get 2 here, you can see. So mode we are using to get the remainder of that specific number divided by any other number, right? So now after mode, we have another function, that is power function, right? So whenever you want to get the power of any, so we want to get power of 10 into 2, right? So power, give the name as power value. So it will return back the power 10 by 2. So you can see 10 power 2, it will be 100. So if we will use 4 here, so 4 power by 2, it will be 16, right? So it will give a result as 16 here, you can see. So that's all about that numeric function. Let's check, do we have more? Yeah, we have two more function, round and truncate. So let's use round function here. As I told you, remember, function is always going to return you only one values, right? Only one values. That's why when we are using power, mode, floor, every function is going to return only one value, single values here, right? So now we have round function, and in round, if we will pass 10.2, right? So it will round this 10.2 by 10. You can see it's round, right? So it's make the 10.2 as a 10. If you will pass 10.6, it will be 11, right? Because we are finding round as 5. If greater than 5, it will be next integer number, or it's less than that 5, it will be going for the uh, previous integer number. And if you will pass 10.5, let's see what is going to give us result is 11. It's also giving that result. And here you can see, here we use two parameters. For this round, we use two parameters, right? So why we use two parameters? For example, this is our round, and if we want to use 4, it means that we want 4 decimal places for these values, right? By rounding. So if we will execute, let's say, so here you can see, okay. So why it's showing only one values? Because after this 5, whatever number of 0 you will give, there is no meaning of that 0, right? So that's why it's not showing here. So for example, if we will use here, so how many decimal places are there? 3, 3, 6, 2, 8. 8 decimal places, but here we pass as 4. It means that we are saying that round this 10.51234234 in a such way that we want only 4 decimal places. So if I will execute, we will be able to see only 4 decimal places here. So this last 3 is not rounded, because this after this 3 we have less than 5 values, right? So if I will make it 6, so this 3 will be changed to 4. You can see 5124. That's all about round function. So now next uh, we have trunc function. So trunc function is just going to remove the decimal values. So TRUNC, trunc. Trunc is known as truncate, right? Truncate, it means that removing the decimal values. Right, so if we will use here, so here we have to remove the comma, right? This comma means that SQL query will, if we will pass comma here, this query will expect one more column after this, right? And we don't have column, right? So it will throw an error. That's why we have to remove this comma. So you can see when we use truncate, so it's not rounded, right? This is the same value, but it's rounded this 3 by 4. You can see 5124, 5124. But when we use truncate, it didn't round. It just removed the value after 4 character, after 4 decimal places. So that's the difference between round and truncate. So obvious, we can also use truncate function with only one parameters, and if we will not pass any number of any values in second parameter, so it will truncate all these decimal places. So here it will be 11. So now here you can see when we executed this code, we got error. So why we got error? Because here you can see we have this column, one column, we have another column, but between these two column we required one comma, right? And we miss comma here. So that's why it's showing error, because it's expecting comma for each and every column, right? So here we have next column, then we have to provide comma here. And when I will execute, you can see it's truncate the value and make it 10. So these all are the number functions. Let's move to the character functions now. So in character functions, we have INSTR. I told you INSTR is responsible for returning you the index or position of a number or position of the character. So for example, we have one string, select. We have one string here. For example, I want to display any values, right? So there is one more features of dual table. So just we want to display the hard coded values. For example, I want to display as Fox, Oracle, apps, solutions, right? I want to display this value only. We cannot display, right? We cannot display the result using select query without any table. So if you will execute, obvious, again we will get an error. It's not possible to execute the select query without table. That's why Oracle provided a dummy table that's known as dual table. So once I will execute, it will return back this result, because in select we have these values, and these values is known as hard coded values. When we are providing any fixed value, that fixed value is known as hard coded value in our programming term, in development term, remember. So whenever you will do anything, you will do wrong, and when I will say that remove the hard coded values, then you have to find anything like you provided the fixed values. So this is the fixed value, it's not going to be changed when we will run. So that is known as hard coded values. So now here you can see display the values as Fox Oracle app solution. And now I want to check the position of apps. So where this apps is located in this string, that's why we have INSTR. So here you can see what is the column name for this one. The column name is for the character. That is not correct, right? So I want to give the column name as C1. So here after these values, I will give C1. So C1 is the column name for this value, right? So let me execute. You can see the column name for this is C1. So now I want to get the index or position of these apps from this string. So that's why we have substr, INSTR, right? So I will use INSTR. This INSTR will accept minimum two values. The first value is the string for which we want to get the values, and second parameter will be what kind of for which value we want to get the position. So I want to get the position for apps. So I will copy these apps, and here we have to provide. And I told you that these apps or all these value as a string value, and a string value be always be in single quotes. So here we have to provide single quotes. Now I will execute. So you can see this return 12. Again, the column name you can see it's right. It's looking like junk column names. I will give the column name as C2. So I will execute. You can see the value is 12. So if you will validate or verify where this app is located, you can see first character, second character, third character, fourth character, fifth, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. This apps start from 12 character. That's why this it's given that 12. So I think you are good, right? So you are able to understand how that INSTR is working. INSTR is accepting two values. First value is the source value from where we have to search, and second is the value which we have to search, so that it can return the position. So if I'll give the position as F, right? Even you can use single character too. If I want to check the position of F from this string, right? So if I will execute, it will return back the position as 1, because F is the first position. If I will use O, it will return 2. If I will use X, it will return 3. Right. And one more thing, if I will pass any values which is not present here, it will return something like that here. Let's see. So capital X we are passing, and the capital X is not there in this string, right? So here we have a small x, but we are looking for capital X. That's why it's returning 0. 0 means this value is not present in this string. This is all about INSTR. Now second value is SUBSTR, SUBSTR. So SUBSTR is going to return you the substring from the main string. This is our main string, and we want to get the substring like apps. We want to get apps from this string. So how we will get? That's what we have SUBSTR. So SUBSTR. So here we have to provide the source value. So this is our source value. So in while learning, right? So as this is just for explaining the purpose of using this value, I use dual table. In real time, we will use our actual functions for doing all these things, right? So now here we want to get the string, right? We want to get the small string from this string, this main string, and what's the string we want? We want to get fox only, right? So where is this fox? Fox is located from first character to next three character. So that's why here we have to give comma for providing another character. And how many characters or what value we want? We want from starting from first character. So I will give one denote as the first character, and we want next three character, right? So here we have to provide 3. So when we will execute this one, so it will return starting from first, and it will return next three characters. So now next three character is fox. So if I will pass here 5, it will return next. If I pass 6 here, it will return next 6 character. Starting from first character. So starting from first character, next 6 character is this one. You can see Fox OR. So instead of 1, if I will pass 2, so it will provide me the next 6 character after from starting from 2. So you can see starting from 2, next 6 character is ORACA till ORCA. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, total 6 character. If I will pass 1, so what it will do? Starting from 2 and give me only one character. So it will starting from 2 or one character only is O. So that's why we are using substring. So that's the main purpose. Instead of it's not limited to only checking these values, right? So we can get more values. Instead of using these hard-coded values, even we can use this complete function here. But I will show you all these things in next session. It will be advanced. So now we are done with substr. Next is upper. So upper function is responsible for converting whatever value we will pass in the upper letter. So we have that upper function and we will pass here values as same values. Let me pass this one, right? So what this upper function will do, it will convert this value into uppercase. So let me execute. So here you can see Fox Oracle app solution converted into uppercase. All this character in uppercase. So the same way we have lower function, lower function. Lower function is responsible for displaying data in lowercase. So here we have LOWER, lower. If I will execute, this will display data in lowercase. You can see Fox Oracle app solution is in lowercase. So whatever value you will pass, it will convert all this value into lowercase. The next is INITCAP, INITCAP. INITCAP function will take values and it will convert that values into INITCAP format. So here you can see this is our value in INITCAP format. The first character is capital, rest is small. First capital is character, next is small. That way, right? So here let me provide another values. For example, I am going to provide values as Fox Oracle apps solutions. So this is the value which is not in that initcap format. This is a small, this is capital, a small, a small. So it will convert all these into initcap format. So let me execute here. You can see this Fox Oracle app solution. This value is converted. This value is converted into this one. So if I will pass only Fox Oracle, so it will convert this Fox Oracle only into that upper. You can say initcap. Fox starting from F starting from capital, Oracle starting from O capital. So that's the use of this character functions. So here we have one few more character function, that is length. So length character function is responsible for giving you the total number of character available in that string. That is the length of that string. So here you can see this in this select statement, it's going too much lengthy. We don't want to display all this value. That's why we have comment in SQL. So comment, we will use single line comments, double dash is showing that comments. So when we will use comment, this value will not be used by executed by SQL. So here I want to use length. So I will use length and I want to check the length of this string. So here I will pass. So once I will execute this one, so it will return back the total number of character present in this string. So if you will count, there will be total number of 25 character in this Fox Oracle app solution. So that's the use of length. Length will return you the total number of character available in that. If I will remove this one, so it will display only 3 because we have only 3 character here in this Fox. Now next function is NVL. So I told you that NVL will return you the null values instead of null values. So here NVL, we are using NVL and here this will be values. For example, Fox. And after that, the second values will be the next values, whatever we want to display if this first value is null values. So you want to display that and by A, something like not available, right? So if I will execute this one, so it will display values, right? So why this is display values? Because NVL is something that's saying that null values. NVL is something that it will display only the second value when the first value will be null. But first value is fox and this value is not a null. So it will not display this one, it will display that value only. So same way, if I will took this one and instead of fox, if I will pass null. So how we are going to use null? So we are going to use null and u double l. This is the value, not in single quotes. If we will pass value in single quotes, this will be a string. But we want null. Null is something that empty value, right? So if you will pass here, so the condition will be true, right? So NVL is saying that if first value will be null value, then I will display second value. So here first value is null value, that's it's true. So it will display second value, that is n by a. So if I will execute, you will be able to see that n by a here. So just opposite we have NVL2, right? NVL2. So NVL2 is saying that if this value will be null, then I will display third value. So third value is something, right? Let me display, right? Null value. Something like that. So if I will execute, it will display null values because the first value is null. So he is saying that if first value will be null, then I will display last values. If first value will not be null, then I will display second values. So here let me use the same values again and VL2, and here I will provide fox. So here first value is not null, then it will display these values. Right, so let me execute this one. So here you can see it is displaying n by a. Let me comment all these values so that you won't confuse. So if I will execute this one, so you can see the first value is not null. That's why it's executing this second value. It's displaying the second value here. Let me change the alias. So in alias, it's showing all these values. Let me change the alias as C1. So you can see it will display in C1 and by A. That's the difference between NVL and NVL2. Both are similar, but just opposite working like that. Next, we have ASCII and the char. So this ASCII is used to return the ASCII character, ASCII value of any character. So ASCII, and here it will ask any character. So let me give A. So it will return the ASCII value of A, that is 65. If you will see that ASCII value of a small a, it's 95 something. You can see 97. If you want to check the ASCII value of a space, you will be able to see here. So here we are given a space. So ASCII value for space is 32. So just opposite of this, we have char, char. This function will take the ASCII value and it will display the character against this ASCII value. So if I will pass 97 here, so it will display the character against this 97. So against this 97, which is this CHR, sorry. So here you can see against this 97 value is a small a. Instead of 97, if I will pass 65, it will display capital A. This is capital A. So these all are the functions we have available, sir. The next function is date function. So I think today it's already we have late. So let's make this date function in next session. So in this session we cover, let's revise a few. So in this session we cover about this dual table. So what is dual table? We cover why we are using dual table, example of dual table. We get to know about the pseudo columns available in SQL. So what is the use of pseudo columns, how that pseudo column works, and how many pseudo columns are there? Few of the examples, this ROWNUM, SYSDATE, user are the pseudo columns. So let me show you this example of pseudo columns. So here you can see. So when we are saying that pseudo columns, so for example, if I have to use select SYSDATE, SYSDATE, SYSDATE from dual. SYSDATE will return you the current date. If I will execute this one, it will display the current date. So current date is 1st October 2024. So this is the pseudo column, SYSDATE pseudo column. ROWNUM I will show you with table, right? So if let me use ROWNUM here. So ROWNUM is going to give you the serial number for the result which you populated. So in result we have only one row. That's why row number is showing row 1 here. if here you can see, if I will execute here this one, so this one having 3 row, so if I will use row num, it will give serial number as 1 2 3. So if you will see here, if I will use this one, where somewhere we have constructed this table, this one, right? So here if I will use row num here, row num, it will display sequence row number as 1 2 3. If there will be 2 records, it will display 1 2. If there will be 100 records, it will display the sequence 1 2 3. So for using the sequence, we are using row number. Row number in SQL is just giving you the sequence for that result output you had. Remember, row number is giving you the sequence of result output. How many result are there in that sequential format, 1 2 3 and all. So now if we see that row number, we say that SYSDATE, another we have user. So when you will use user, it will return you the current username. So current username is sys, we connected using sys user. So if you will go to the connection, this ASCII connection, go to properties, you will be able to see the username here, right? SYS. So the sys keyword is user keyword is using to show the current system user, right? So next we have UID. It will show you the user ID for this user. So you can see user ID for user is 0. The next column is current date. So if you will use current date, it will also return the current date. So you have sysdate and current date, both are returning you the current date. So another we have values as current time stamp. So CURRENT current time stamp, it will return you the time stamp with the minute, hour, second and all. So you can see when we are using current time stamp, it's returning data like 1 October 24, 3:19 34 second, 0000 something PM, ACR, Calcutta, Pacific and all. So this is about the pseudo columns. The next is we have label. So label we cannot use here. For label we required few queries, as few codes. So we will use label later. So these all are the pseudo columns which we can use. So after pseudo columns, we got to know about the SQL functions and all. And yes, we cover numeric functions, character functions. Date function is remain. So we will cover date function in next session. So thank you so much for joining the session. If you have any of the any queries and you want to ask anything, feel free to unmute yourself and let me know your queries. I will be happy to answer your queries. Thank you so much for joining this session.